Welcome to episode 46 of the Valley Sports Talk podcast. Today it is myself and Brandon joining us as we are both very sad as our teams both lost game sevens of the playoffs. Obviously, Brandon's hurts a bit more because the Leafs have yet to make it past the first round the past 6 years, but I won't scar him anymore. Brandon, how are you? You want to give a little feedback about the Leafs before we get
I'm
going?
great. I'm great. I've had we're recording this on Wednesday. They were eliminated on Saturday, so I've had my time. Saturday night was not a happy guy. I went to bed right after the game, to be honest. But now that I've had time to chillax, watch your team choke as well, I feel a little bit better.
Thanks. Yeah. When Panarin scored that goal, I was speechless for half an hour, and I actually didn't move from the spot that he scored that goal for half an hour. Didn't say
I
a word, and
understand.
I didn't move. I just sat there for half an hour, and like it felt like it flew. Like Grayson said, I didn't move for half an hour.
I was kind of the same. Like I didn't leave my chair until basically like 5 minutes into the Edmonton game right after, and then I was like, I'm going to bed.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. But today, we are going to be talking about. Well, to start, we're actually going to go into some NBA talk, even though Max isn't here and he's the guy that knows the most about the NBA here. In the VST Inc. Get all legit with it. We're going to talk about the conference finals, which started yesterday. Mavs and Warriors play yesterday. The Heat versus Celtics were yesterday. We're going to wrap up me and Brandon's favorite two teams since they were eliminated from the playoffs, being the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're going to talk about some key free agents who we think will re-sign, maybe what around their term and money they get. Then we're going to go into a bit of the Leafs talk because, as we know, like I said in the intro, the Leafs have not made it past the first round in the past 6 years. In fact, the last time they made it past the first round, making the playoffs, was in 2004. So Brandon was 3 and I was 2. Um, we will then go. Brandon has a game where I think I'm going to be guessing quotes from the the good and wrap up press conferences, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll do that. It's supposed to be me versus Max, but Max has yet to show up, so we'll see if he ends up joining us in a couple minutes or what the heck happens. And then to wrap it up, we are going to go into the second round of the NHL. We're going to go through the 4 series, two from the West, two from the East, and we're going to go through a series of questions, um, thinking who will win, what do they have to do to win, et cetera, et cetera. Without that, we will jump into our starting where we're going to talk about the NBA Conference Finals. Um, as I quoted or as I stated, the Warriors and Mavs play tonight, and the Heat beat the Celtics last night in Game 1. I watched the highlights. I unfortunately was not able to watch it live, but Jimmy looked like he was playoff Jimmy. Like he came out firing. It was
Yeah, I do gotta say, Jimmy looks mean right now. Like just watching highlights and stuff like that, he looks like a mean, determined guy. Um, which kind of brings me to like my question, and it's not even just Jimmy Butler. It's like the Heat finished as the 1 seed, and like I I thought the 76ers were gonna beat them. Um, I thought the Hawks in the first round would take a couple games from them. Um, and I think the Celtics were going to take them in six, but they came out and had a pretty dominant game one performance. Like, are we underrating this number one seed somehow?
I think I think you sort of have to. They're like that team that after Jimmy, they're sort and Bam, they're sort of like just like role players. Like I'm not gonna say Kyle Lowry or Tyler Hero like role players, but they're like guys that don't get talked about. They just do their job. Where you have teams like the Sixers, where there's so much drama around Embiid and Harden, and like Tobias Harris, and will these guys perform? Where the Heat just kind of go about their business, and obviously they're getting it done. I think that Jimmy was actually kind of able to contain Tatum. He had that big block in the clutch there on him on that three. And they did that without Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's still out with his some lower body.
I think it's a
And I
hammy.
think a hammy. It's always a hammy. It's Lowry, and I think to this day, Kyle Lowry is still probably the second best player on that team, or like the second option on that team. If you want to put a hero there, I'm fine with that. But they did it without a great player in Kyle Lowry, so it kind of like scares me to if you bring him back, what will happen, or if Kyle Lowry comes back. I know that me and Brandon had each of these teams in our finals. Brandon's actually is still alive. Mine is gone, unfortunately, with Phoenix losing to the Mavs in a dominant game by Luka in Game 7. But like both these teams we had in the finals, me or Brandon. So like they're both great teams. It's going to be a great series, but like doing it without Larry, you just saw that the Heat are determined. Like Jimmy seemed like he's not going to stop.
Yeah, like I feel like I gotta stop underestimating them. It's crazy. Like you said, they got a bunch of role players, but the good thing about them is like one of them gets hot, and that's all you need. Like last night, it was Tyler Hero. I think he put up like 18 or something like that. But sometimes like you get a Bam game, or you get a Oladipo game, or you get Tyler Struess game, or whatever his first name is.
Max
Max
Strus.
Max Max Struess. It's so like when you got players like that, you only need one of them to have a game, and because the way Jimmy's playing right now, he's almost a walking 40 piece. He basically has been this whole playoff, so you can kind of rely on that. And his defense, like like you said, he had a block, he had a bunch of steals, leading the easy buckets. So I think we gotta watch out for the Heat. So I mean, I don't even know who to pick anymore. Like I mean, the Celtics didn't have Horford with COVID, and then I think Marcus Smart had a foot problem. So we'll see if they can get back in for game two. So
I
I
think
still
they
want to
said
lean
that.
Celtics,
I think they said Al Horford is already going to be probably ruled out for Game 2.
and that's big because he's been playing
He's
really
been he's
well,
been
actually.
really good these playoffs.
So I think I'm gonna. I don't know. I still want to say Celtics. So I think I'm still underrating this Heat team. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll stick with my pick from before the playoffs. I'm gonna stick Heat. I'm actually gonna go Heat in 6. I say they win at their home. No, never mind. That would be in. I'm gonna go Heat in 6 still, but it would be in Boston, being that Miami's the home team. And if we're talking about an X factor, I think an X factor for me, I'll do one for each team. For the Heat, it's got to be Tyler Hero. He's just that guy that can get buckets. If Jimmy all of a sudden, he hasn't done it yet, but if all of a sudden he has a cold night, you can turn to Tyler Hero. He will knock down those shots at will. And for the Celtics, it's going to be Al Horford for me. Even though he has missed game 1 and 2, he has been a big piece to that Celtics team of why they've made it so far this season and in the playoffs. So if he can get back and he can sort of, I know that I believe he was guarding Giannis. I could be completely off there. But if he can sort of like guard Bam and take Bam out of the picture whenever he gets back, I think that all they have to do is stop Jimmy and then contain Jimmy and stop Tyler Hero. And I think the Celtics have a shot at it.
Yeah, for sure. I think my X factors are. Um, I would have to say Tyler Hero as well. Like players like that, basically like 3-point shooters. They always seem to play well at home, and he showed that last night. Like he hits one of his first shots, the crowd gets into it. It just kind of leads to a good night. I want to see if he can play well in Boston because I know he didn't really play well in Philadelphia in round two. So if he can play well in Boston, I think that's a big big turning point for Miami. For the Celtics, it's got to be Robert Williams. He's been one of their best players. Uh, he was their leading scorer in Game 7 against Milwaukee. I think he hit 7 threes. Um, this guy's confident, and for a big man, you don't see that too often. But he's kind of developing, and he's understanding the way the game's kind of going, the trail it's been going down. He's accepting it. He's practicing. He's getting better, and the work's definitely paying off. He's been a really big surprise for me. And if he can play well, I think the Celtics got a good chance.
What's your final pick for this series? Since you didn't really give us a
I'm still gonna. I can't say Celtics in 6 anymore because that means the Heat only win one more game. But I don't know if the Heat will lose at home. I'm gonna say Celtics in 6, I guess.
Old. Okay, moving on to the game that tonight we have Luka versus Steph in the Mavs and the Warriors. Didn't think the Mavs were a good enough team to get here in the first place, to be honest. I thought that the Porzingis trade was kind of a weird one, and all of a sudden Luke has just become a megastar in this series, and he's shown why he deserves to be a top 5 player in this league, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I wonder if because how Luka's playing, I wonder if we see more players uh, go overseas because as Luka's documented, he's said, well, like I've played against men since the age of like 15. Like game sevens are nothing new to me. Playing against people are nothing like good players are nothing new to me. He said scoring 40 or 30 in the NBA is easier than over scoring 30 overseas. And it's really paying off. He's obviously been one of the best players since the minute he walked on the court. My only thing is he basically carried that Mavs team to the conference finals. Like at some point does he get tired?
I think he's definitely has, and you have in here whenever you wrote this, is Luca enough? I think he was enough to take down the teams before him, being the Jazz and the Suns, but I don't think he's going to be enough to take down the Warriors. You know, the Warriors have Steph Curry, probably if not the best point guard of all time, arguably. They have Klay Thompson, who is not obviously the Klay of old, but he is still Klay Thompson. He can still knock down the three with ease. And then they sort of have these under the radar guys. They have, Draymond Green, who's still a great defender, had arguably one of his better seasons in a while. And then they have people like Andrew Wiggins. They have the rookie Jonathan Kuminga. They have Otto Porter. They just have guys that are great 3-and-D players. I think they fit this team very well. So if we're saying that Luca isn't are they enough to stop him? I don't think they're enough to stop Luca. I think they're enough to possibly contain Luca. And once you contain Luca, you need one of these other guys on this Mavs team to go off. And who's that going to be? Spencer Dinwiddie? Tim Hardaway? It's going to be Maxi Kleber, for God's sakes. Like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't really high on the Mavs team going into this playoffs, and I'm still not the highest on it, even though they made it to the conference finals.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I don't think Luka's enough to take down the Warriors. Like you look at his previous two matchups and like if Donovan Mitchell ain't firing on all cylinders, then that Jazz team, I mean, they got Mike Conley and Bogdanovich and people like that. But if Mitchell ain't going, they're not going to put up a whole lot of points. And then you look at the Phoenix Suns team, and if Booker ain't going, you don't really have anybody else to put up points. Whereas you look at the Warriors, and you got four legitimate people who can put up 25 points. You got Curry, you got Thompson, you got Wiggins, you got Poole. Like they're not dependent on one player like the other teams in the past. So I think the Warriors are going to take this one. Um, yeah, it's gonna be tough for Luca to do this again. And I was listening to a podcast, and they actually made a good point. Like the Mavs made it to the conference finals, and that although that's good for their franchise this year, I think it's going to hurt them in the future because making it to the conference finals, you're like, okay, we can do this. So I don't know if they're going to like look to add bigger pieces. Where if you lose to the Suns, I think you have to make moves to get because the West is so stacked. Now that they've made it to the conference finals, they might be confident in their squad, and we both don't trust it.
Also, for a bit, like I don't think obviously it's Dallas, so it's warm, but I don't think they're not huge free agency destination. Like they're not a big market team. So I think that them making it to the conference finals and having a player like Luka Doncic who people will want to play with, I think that will draw more interest in the
Well, let's hope
offseason.
so.
Even if they make the finals and they somehow take down the Warriors, that's even better. Even if they don't win the finals. I think that this is like a good step for the Mavs. Everybody's sort of been like when the Porzingis trade happened, everybody's like, okay, here's like the big two, the big European two, and all of a sudden they trade away, and they're like, okay, is Luca like upset? Is like a first round exit here to the Jazz potentially going to make Luca want to be traded? And here they are, like that narrative of Luca possibly wanting out or possibly going to be on his way out in a couple of years is, I think it's completely off the table now.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So saying that, these series we will be probably covering them as we go along, and in one of our episodes after these series are done, we'll do a finals prediction, and stuff like that. But we're gonna move on to some NHL season wrap up based on the Leafs and the Pens.
You can hear me, but I've lost you.
Hey,
Oh, we're back. Okay, I'm back.
Did you hear what I said?
No.
I just said we're going to go off the NBA now and talk about the wrap up for the Leafs and the Pens. If you want to sort of take it away.
Perfect. Yeah. Obviously the first round matchups are over, and we're not going to go over every single one because we want to start talking about the second round. But I figured, since me and Noah follow the Leafs and the Pens, obviously, and they both had disappointing ends to the season, we should kind of wrap up this season for them. Starting off with the Leafs, obviously, Game 7 loss to Tampa. 1 goal away in Game 6, 1 goal away in Game 7, kind of heartbreaking. But they got a lot of, I wouldn't say big name free agents, but a lot of really important,
Depth, key pieces.
yeah, some depth and really some key pieces. So I think, if we can get sort of the easier ones out of the way first, like I think Kasha and Engvall, I think they're both RFAs, so I think they're kind of almost guaranteed to stay. I don't know if you think one of them will go.
If,
Um,
if I just see any of them go, it might be Engvall just because Kasha was injured a bit this year, so he didn't have enough to show. But Engvall at points did he had a career year, right? So he did show some points that he will be worth more than what he has right now. But between those two, I think they'll both be back. But if I were to see any of them sort of get an offer sheet thrown at him, it would be Engvall.
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. So both these players made $1.2 million last year. Um,
I say Engvall comes in around 2 and Kasha probably around 1.5.
yeah, I don't think Kasha goes up too much just because of his injury history, and he
Yeah.
continued that this year. Engvall's probably going to go up a little bit. Moving on, Giordano. He makes $3.4 million. I think the Leafs are going to
That
keep
was
him.
he made 6 technically, right? But the Seattle took
Yeah,
50% of that.
yeah. I've been hearing a lot of things actually where people believe he'll go down as far as like $1.5 million.
I've heard that too, and I think that does happen. I think he returns to the Leafs around 1.5 to 1 mil. It is his hometown team. He is 38. This team, like as much as it hurts much. Sorry, I can't talk. As much as most people won't agree with this is a championship contending team, and they will be next year with the players they have. So I think he returns for 1.5 to 2 mil, maybe even less.
I do too. He played really well here and he seemed to gel pretty well, so I think he'll come back. Another defenseman is Ilya Labushkin. I also think he comes back. He worked pretty well with Morgan Riley. He made 1.3 last year. I think that gets upped a little bit, but I don't know. I don't think it'll be that much higher, like 2.5 maybe.
I wasn't even going to say that. So obviously, the reason they brought Labushkin is because he's a defensive defenseman. He has 3 career NHL goals in 3 career NHL seasons, and 2 of them were this year with the
Yeah,
Leafs. So obviously, he's not an offensive threat. Like you said, I thought he did play very well with Riley in the playoffs. Riley's obviously known as the offensive defenseman, and then you obviously put him with Labushkin, who's a defensive defenseman. It's got to work for some parts of the game. Um, Saying 2.5, I say he gets 2. He's not a flashy player. He's a player that you want on your team to be able to lock them down. So I say he gets 2 mil.
yeah. Like if you can bring Labushkin and Giordano back for a combined like less than $4 million, I think you'll take that
I
all
think
day long.
this is completely like off topic. Like it's on topic, but it's not on any of these players. I think you got to find a way to get Muzzin out.
Yeah, he's had injury problems. He's making 5.6 as a 33-year-old. The thing is, I don't know if you trade Muzzin, I I think you got to find a way first of all to trade Justin Hall.
I think he's got to be like bought out or cut. Like I'm
Yeah,
sorry, you got you
because
got you got Liljegren and Sandin just waiting to play, and I know that
they
they're both
they both
bad
have to play.
defensively. They have
Yeah.
to. They have to. I'm sorry, they have to play.
So if they play, you got Liljegren, Sandin, Labushkin, Giordano, Brody, Riley. There's your six,
I
and
think there's
that's
your
without
6
Muzzin.
there.
So you
Let
got it. Yeah,
Sandin
I
and
think.
Logan play, and then you got Labushkin, you got Gio and TJ, which I think would work because they played together in Calgary. Those two
Yeah,
played together in Calgary, and then you got Riley and Labushkin. I think that's a great top 60.
yeah. So I don't know how you get rid of Jake Muzzin's contract.
You might have to
But
attach like you might have to attach your first round pick this year or something to it.
Yeah, we'll see. Next we'll go Elia Mckayev, who had an outstanding season this year, kind of in between the second and third line. He made $1.6 million this year. I think a team is willing to pay him more than the Leafs can afford. Unfortunately, I think
100%.
he's going to be the one to go. Unfortunately, because he's a really good player. But if one person goes, I think it's going to be Mckayev. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, obviously at the start of the year or at the start of the season, there was rumors that he requested a trade because he wanted to be a top six forward.
Yep.
Obviously they didn't listen to those rumors and they played him in the bottom six for the start of the year. But then Nylander was sort of struggling, so they thought to put Nylander down to the third line, and they put McCabe up to the second line. He excelled with Tavares. He's a 20-goal scorer for the first time in his career. I think that is very valuable to teams, having a 20-goal scorer on your team who was making 1 point, like whatever you said, mil this year. I think that's insane value. Um, in my opinion, anything over 3.5 to 4 mil would be an overpay. But the way we've seen sort of contracts go, I talked to Brandon at the start of this, and I think he gets sort of in the Blake Coleman range, and he'll get anywhere from 4.5 to 5 mil. But I think that's a bit of an overpay. I don't know how
Yeah,
you feel
I
being a
think
Leaf
some teams
fan.
take that chance.
Some team will pay that.
Yeah. And then last but not least, I think the biggest contract we got to talk about is Jack Campbell. Um, Obviously, you got Peter Mrazek at 3.8, who can't seem to stay healthy. Jack Campbell made 1.6 last year. There were rumors at the All-Star game, and this was when Jack was at his best, so I don't blame him for asking this amount of money when he was playing like that. But there were rumors that at the All-Star break, Jack asked for $7 million, and the Leafs countered with 2.9. So I think we got to meet
It's
in
like
the
they're
middle.
bartering. I want 7 mil. Oh, I can give you 2.9.
But obviously, I mean, Jack has been outstanding the last 2 years in the playoffs. I don't know. I think you look at a guy like, obviously Jack is not Jacob Markstrom, but you look at a guy like Jacob Markstrom who's making $6 million. I think you got to kind of meet in the middle at like 4.5, 5. I don't know. Goalies get paid so much is the problem. Like if Peter Mrazek's making 4, Jack Campbell's got to make more than that.
I
Unfortunately.
would agree. Unfortunately for you, I don't see him coming back. I just don't think the Leafs have the money or like will want to pay the money to play him because he's only had 1 year. He's been a career back of his whole year. I'm not saying that he's not worth that. I just don't think that after 1 year that the Leafs should pay him like close to 6 mil for term because he's 30 years old already. By the start of the season, he'll be on the wrong side of 30. Um, I already saw sort of reports that it is unlikely he would return, but who knows? It seemed like obviously all the fans liked him. It seemed like he was a great teammate in the room. I don't think if he comes back, there'll be any issues like with that, like of him coming back, of him not liking it or stuff like that. I think it's all will be money based.
Yeah, I think the Leafs are in a tricky spot. Although, like you were saying, it sounds like he won't come back. I actually think he will. Um, just for the simple fact that like what other choice do the Leafs have? I was hearing a lot of reports. Minnesota wants to bring back Fleury. So if that was an option, you can kind of erase that. Um, I don't know what the free agent market is looking like for goalies this year, but uh, I don't know. I feel like it's sort of like obviously they'd love to have Jack Campbell back, but I feel like it's going to be more of a sort of have to sort of situation. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess
I
we'll
mean,
see as the time goes. Um, we'll move on to Pittsburgh, and we'll do the same. We'll sort of get the smaller ones out of the way first. Obviously, we'll stick on
here
train of
I got your potential goalie situations here.
for the
You
Leafs.
got Fleur, no, for free agent,
Okay,
like that will be free. You got Fleury, Mikko Koskinen, Darcy Kemper, Thomas Greiss, Jonas Corposalo, Martin Jones, Braden Holtby, Jack Campbell.
that does not sound
Not
great.
not very good.
That's where I think like Campbell is basically your only option because I was listening to a podcast saying it does sound like the Wild are doing everything they can to get Marc-Andre Fleury back.
Yeah,
So
it definitely will be a question going into the offseason for Toronto.
yeah, and I don't see Colorado not re-signing Darcy Kemper, because Colorado's sort of in the same situation as Toronto. Like, if it's not Darcy Kemper, who is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, not looking too good. Continuing on to goalies, though, for the Pittsburgh Penguins, you got backup goalie Casey DeSmith. I personally think he makes a return. He's 30. He's a solid backup, as we saw in the playoffs. Obviously, he got hurt, which was very unfortunate. But in the game he played really well. He's just a steady guy, and I think you can get him back for a pretty small amount.
In my opinion, I don't think he comes back. If it's anything more than 1.5 mil, I don't want him back. It's not that he's a bad goalie. I think he's a great backup. It's just that I feel like with like this year, Jarry had a massive, like one of the bigger workloads in the NHL before his injury. So I think that he can do that again. So I think if you can bring a goalie in for 1 mil, not Louis Domingue, anybody but him, um, I think you can do that. I think just if Smith's asking for 1.8 to 2 mil, I think that's just money that can be spent elsewhere to try to bring some back to the other guys that we're going to talk about in a minute. Would I be mad if he comes back for 1.5 mil? No. What am I sad to see him go? Honestly, no. I think backup goalies they're just there to play upwards of 20 games, and just if you get a win with a backup goalie, that's a plus.
Yeah. So the next smallest one here, we got Danton Heinen, who's an RFA. He made $1.5 million a year. He's pretty young still at 26. Basically a point every 2 games sort of player. Like, you'd kind of expect like a 40-point season out of him. Do you think the Penguins would match an offer, say for, I don't know, $3 million, $2.5 million?
So for me on Heino, he had a career year, in goals, career in points. Not points. He had a career in goals. Um, for me, he's sort of like a last sort of um like a last sort of guy. Like if you can't get this guy, you go back to Heino. I think obviously he's gonna get a pay raise having the career goals. I loved him in the playoffs. He was great. You know, he scored some big time goals in round one. Um, Anything more than 2.5 though, I'm saying no to.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. The fact that he's an RFA works really well with the Penguins, where if you can't get the players that we're about to talk about, then you kind of like say, hey,
I
I'm
need you.
back. Yeah.
Get back here.
So yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Um, Next is we have Evan Rodriguez, who made $1 million last year. Well, this year, had an amazing start to the season. A lot of that was because Malkin and Crosby were injured. Kind of went back to normal at the end of the year, but that was to be expected. Um, he had 43 points this year. He had 5 in the playoffs, so he was no slouch. Um, I think, I don't know. We'll see what he asks for. I wonder um, if he gets paid a little bit too much just because of the start of his season. But like, what do you
Yeah,
think he'd ask for?
it'll be interesting. Obviously, he's been sort of like a player who bounced around. Obviously, he was on the Sabres, came to Pittsburgh, back to the Sabres. He went to Toronto, didn't play a single game in Toronto, then came back to Pittsburgh. Um, I honestly want him back. I think he's a great depth player. As we saw at the start of the year, he can play all around the lineup. Whenever Malkin or whenever Crosby was hurt there in the playoffs in games 5 and 6, um, Rodriguez stepped up and was playing second line center behind Malkin, and he scored that massive goal on the in the game 7 that unfortunately they ended up blowing a lead like usual. And he's just one of those players that can play anywhere. You know, he had in their playoffs, he had the most power play points whenever you have guys like Malkin and Letang and Crosby and Rust and Gensel on your team. But the leader in power play points was Evan Rodriguez. Anything more than 1.5, though, I think you can find elsewhere. But as a Penguins fan, I want him back.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about these two guys together because it kind of seems like, um, in my mind, maybe not yours. We'll see. I think only one of these two players stay. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. You got Rickard Rakell, obviously, who came over in a trade, $2.5 million, and then you got Brian Rust, $3.5 million, has been here for a lot longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like only one of them will be back.
Yeah, I would agree with you when you say that one will be back, and it's gonna be sad to see if it is a Rust, as he has been here his entire career. We drafted him, he played fourth line for us, and all of a sudden he became a first line player. He gets a big pay raise in my eyes, and probably close to 6 to 7 mil. You could say it's a bit of an overpay for a player that just turned 30. Um, but I think he's worth it. The Penguins were having talks to him, I believe, that he wanted 6 for 6, which would bring him until he's 36, which I think the Pens were okay with giving him 6 mil. It was just that they didn't want to pay him until he was 36. I think that if we can get him back 6 mil, 3 to 4 years, I think that's great. But if we're gonna say if you think that only one will stay, and I agree, I think that it would be more likely that it's Rickard Rakell, as he is a year younger, and I think he will demand less. I think Russ will demand from 6 to 6.5. I think Dan or not Dan Heinen. I think Rickard Rakell comes in anywhere around 4.5 to 5 mil. And in the small time that he was here, I really loved him. He's a skilled player. He even had a down year this year. He was like not very good points wise. Then he came to Pittsburgh, and you could tell you like, okay, I know what this guy can do. Like, he was an all-star. If they don't bring back Rust, I think that he slots in perfectly on that first line with Gensel and Crosby. Um, it'll be interesting to see how Pittsburgh does it. They're going to have to trade away a couple players if they want to be able to bring back all these guys. I don't think they will, but if they do, they're going to have to move some salary, and it'll be interesting to see. But if I'm going to pick one of these two players that will come back, I say it's more likely that's Ricardo Cal.
And how do I even say anything else? Because that was just perfect. Um, Keeping up with the duos, we'll talk about these two together because they've been on the team for 15 years together. You got Malkin and Letang. Um, I think as much as down the line it might be a detriment to the Penguins franchise, I think they do everything in their power to get both of these guys back. Um, I think it's sort of a respect situation. Both these guys were drafted. They've played their entire careers here. And um, obviously you got to bring them back to see if you can have another run. So I think these signings might be bad for the long haul. I think just out of like longevity and stuff, you do everything you can to bring them both back.
Yeah, I agree that you do whatever it takes. Not whatever it takes. Obviously, you got to bring money into effect. Like, I think the goal is that Malkin try to get him around 6.5 to 6.9 for 3 years. I think Malkin has 3 years left in the tank of playing decent, above average hockey. And then Letang is obviously the one that's going to get paid more. He had the better year. He's been proven to be able to stay healthy more than Malkin. I think, unfortunately, I think he gets close to 8 mil, which is a bit much. I'd probably look to get around 7.5. Um, Letang wants to play for 5 more years. He's 35. That brings him to 40. I'd give him 4 years till he's 39. Obviously, defense. There's less skating involved, so they are able to play a bit longer than most forwards. I think he'll be fine till he's 39 if we pay him 7.5. So, if you, they don't if I'm gonna say one that will most likely be back, I think it's Malkin, because I think that Letang will get more offers in free agency for more money from other teams, and I don't think Malkin will get as high of offers. But I think I agree with what you think. Your point. I think you do whatever it takes to bring these two back.
Yeah, I'm sort of in agreements with you. I think if one's going to come back, it will be Malkin. I feel like he's the one who um, will sort of be easier to negotiate contract, like money wise. I think he's making 9.5 this year. I
He
think he's
did
definitely
say in
up.
a presser that money is not money isn't the need for him anymore. It's about family for him.
Yeah, I think he's definitely not going to have a problem coming down a little bit. Um, the problem is, so I was watching the 32 Thoughts podcast, and um, from what they were hearing, the Pittsburgh Penguins were having contract talks with Chris Letang, and they weren't going above $7 million. Like the Penguins aren't. It sounds like the Penguins aren't willing to pay him more than what he made this year. So I think it might take them a little bit longer to sort of come to an agreement. So that's where I'm kind of like, if one's going to come back, it's going to be Malkin, but we'll see what happens. I mean, Letang's worth every penny. He has been his whole career, so we'll see what goes on there. Um, that sort of talks about our free agents. Keeping with the Penguins, just because we've been talking about them. Let's just assume they bring back basically everybody but one of Rust and Raquel. Do they have another shot in them, like another run, or are
100%.
we? Yeah,
They were dominant in the Rangers series. This had a couple bad like in my opinion, the fact that they were able to dominate the Rangers, even though they didn't win. I know they didn't win. Don't come at me for that. Without having Jerry for the whole series, Crosby for games 5 and 6, Raquel only played in one full game. Dumoulin was out. Even Brian Boyle was hurt. I 100% think that they still have a run in them. Jerry's an above average goalie. He played great this year. Crosby is still a top 5 player in the NHL in my eyes. And Letang this year was still a top 10 D. Um, it's just going to be what they do this offseason. Is it going to go well for them? Is it going to go bad for them? But if they bring back the players and keep this sort of core, I 100% think they have a shot at it for the next year or two.
yeah. I'm in a little bit of a disagreement. I think the Penguins, if they bring back everybody, they'll be a playoff team again. And in my mind, they'll be one of the top three in the Metro. And I think they can make it past the first round for sure. I don't think I see another cup run with this squad, but I could definitely see a second round fight for a conference finals with this team for sure. I think it's going to be interesting because the Eastern Conference has same playoff teams have kind of been there for around like 10 years. Like we're soon it's Pittsburgh is going to be out of there. Washington might even be out of there as soon as next year. Um, Boston, like, is Patrice Bergeron going to retire? Will they be out of it next year? I think there's going to be some spots open for some teams like the Islanders. I don't even know who else in the East would compete. Maybe Detroit. I'm not so sure, but I think there's going to be a little bit of some differences in the Eastern Conference in the years to come. Um, Moving back to the Leafs real quick. Do they blow it up?
No, I don't think you blow it up. Um, Even to today, I was listening. Well, at work, I was listening to Spit and Chicklets, their newest episode. They came out yesterday. All of those guys agreed that you don't even trade Nylander, who I thought, talking to you after Game 7, I thought that if any of them were to go, Nylander. Maybe in my opinion, I still think you get rid of Nylander. He's a third line. He's not a third line player talent wise, but on that Toronto team, he was playing third line, making 6.5 mil. If anybody's gonna get traded, it's him. But blowing it up, you're crazy. Tavares obviously is not worth what you paid him, but you paid him. He's still an above average player. He's still a potential. This year, he was probably going to be on the Olympic roster. So he's still a top 50 player, maybe 60 if you're really pushing it, if you really don't think he's that good player in the league. And obviously, you have a top 5 player in Austin Matthews and a top 15, 20 in Marner. So there's no way you blow it up, in my opinion.
I'm on the same boat as you. I'm like, if the years are reversed and this year was the Montreal series, I think you kind of blow it up a little bit more. But the fact that he took the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions to 7, you lost Game 6 by 1 in overtime in their building. You had a hard-fought battle at home, Game 7. I think you don't blow it up. I'm in the same sort of boat as you. Obviously, you're not trading Matthews. You're not trading Marner. Tavares has a no trade clause. So I think if you're going to trade one, it's going to be Nylander. But I feel like you really got to find a way to get Nylander and Tavares to play well together. They just didn't gel this year, and a guy like Nylander can't be playing on your third line, like you said. So I think they got to work really hard and try and get them to gel. And if they can't, then you have to get rid of them because, like you said, you can't pay a guy on your third line $6.5 million. Um, but yeah, I definitely don't think they blow it up.
No.
Uh, but we'll see how it goes. I heard an interesting thing. Which I think would be pretty cool. Speaking of John Tavares, because obviously, like you said, he's getting older. He definitely is slowing down. Does he take face-offs and then play the wing?
Yeah, I saw that too. I didn't see the face-off thing, but I thought I saw the winger thing. I think
Yeah.
people were saying the same about Malkin too, because Malkin's starting to slow down. He's getting 35. He can still score goals, but he's not the quick big boy we used to see, right? Um, that'd be interesting because I don't know who the Leafs would bring in as their second center then.
Maybe Kerfoot. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Back in
it
the
depends.
day,
I
Willie
could
was a
definitely see it
centerman.
working. Um, because he is slowing down. He's not the same player he used to be, obviously. So it'd be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah, if they play him on the wing, I'm actually not against that. I think it could really work. I think he still has to take the face-offs. He's a phenomenal face-off, one of the best guys in the league at it. So I think even if he plays wing, he's got to be the one to take the face-offs. But I guess we'll see. Um, we've been talking for quite some time here. We're doing pretty good. So I'll try and speed it up here a little bit. On your script, do you see the answers?
No.
Okay, good. We're gonna do a little game here. We're gonna stick with the Leafs and Penguins. I got quotes, three per team, after their game. Here's what they said, and I want to see if you can guess who said this. We'll start with the Leafs. Okay, this person, after losing Game 7, said, "We are getting sick and tired of feeling this way."
Uh, that's Marner. I remember seeing that quote.
That is Mitch Marner. Um, Next one, after being asked about the fans, he said, "We have the most passionate fan base in the league, and they deserved better."
Between Riley or
I kept
Matthews.
I kept it to big name players, so
Okay, so I think I'm gonna go Matthews because I think Riley was asked different questions if I'm not mistaken.
the Matthews is the guy who said this, and I don't want to go too off script here, but do you would you make Matthews your captain?
No, he doesn't. Not that he's not a captain material, but I think that Tavares is way more suited to be a captain in the NHL than Matthews is. That's
Yeah,
not even saying anything about Matthews. That's just my opinion.
yeah, I don't think you change it next season. I was just hearing a lot of stuff about that, so I wanted to hear your thoughts. But I think Matthews' contract is next season or
Yeah,
something like that.
that'll be next offseason will be an interesting one.
Yeah, I think if you sign when you sign him to a new contract, I think you follow that up with captaincy,
I would agree
personally.
there.
Well, no, he's not till 24, 25. Geez, that's a
You got
long
2 more
time.
years. You got next year and the year after.
Yeah. And last but not least, when asked about going into the third period of Game 7, he said, "We were playing really well, and the guys truly believed we would come back."
That sounds like something captain would say. So I'll go with Tavares.
When I read that, I was like, "That's a captain thing too," but it was actually Morgan Riley.
Okay. So he's still an alternate. He's still one of the leadership
Oh,
guys
and
there.
he's
So
he's
yeah,
the
that
only guy who's been there the
his
whole
whole career.
time.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So 2 for 3, that ain't bad.
I'll
I'm
take two
thinking
for
you're
three.
gonna go 3
I'm
for 3
hoping I
against
can go 3 for 3 here.
this guy. When asked about his contract, most of these are contract things. Well, they're all
Yeah,
because Pittsburgh's got a lot of big guys that need contracts. This guy said, "I hope I stay here. I hope I retire here."
except Evgeny Malkin.
That's Evgeny Malkin. This guy, we were already talking about this one, so you know this one, but he said, "I play a lot better than what my salary would say."
He is correct when he says this. It's Brian Rust.
That is Rust. And the last one, I'm guessing, by process of elimination, you know who this is. And when asked about free agency, he said, "I don't know what to expect because every time I've gotten to this point, I've gotten a contract extension, but my goal is to stay."
That's Tanger.
That's Chris Letang for you right there. So 5 for 6, that's pretty good. Quickly rolling right into second round matchups. Again, we're recording this on Wednesday, so we had our first two games last night. One of them was Colorado St. Louis. Colorado won 3-2 in overtime. It was a really good game. So after seeing that game, my question to you is, can St. Louis upset, or is this the year Colorado finally makes the conference finals?
I actually think the one team that would be able to upset them will be the St. Louis Blues. Not will be, but would be the St. Louis Blues. You know, they got a former Selke winner in Ryan O'Reilly on their first line, who was paired up with McKinnon the whole night. And I don't think he'll be able to stop McKinnon. I keep saying this about the NBA. I say this about a lot. I think he'll be able to contain McKinnon, but not fully stop him. And Ryan O'Reilly scored the first goal last night. Also, Jordan Binnington, huge game last night. I think that he is the X factor in this series if the St. Louis Blues want to win this series.
Jordan Binnington played amazing. I checked the stats this morning. The shots in overtime, I don't know if you saw this or not.
Wasn't
The
it like
shots
15 or something like 8-0?
13-0
13, yeah.
Colorado in
Yeah,
overtime.
yeah, I
That's
knew it was something to zero.
like Jordan Binnington, I think, faced 53 shots last night. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's
Which
nuts.
brings
Oh,
which
we're
brings
not
me
going
to
to
my
talk
next.
about this, but shout
Yeah,
out to Jake Ottinger. Massive,
Jake Ottinger was amazing. I actually
massive.
was going to talk
He
about
the
Jake
f- the,
Ottinger
f-
when
the
we get
f-
to the Flames Oilers series. So
yeah,
he was amazing.
Dallas got their goalie of the future
100%. Best goalie of the playoffs, and he lost, which is super
so
unfortunate.
far, and he
Um,
lost.
yeah, that's crazy. Keeping with goalies, who's got the better goalie in this series?
Stats wise, it's obviously Kemper. We're talking right now. I think Bennington's playing better than Kemper is.
Yeah, I think Binnington is a very emotional guy, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But right now, the swagger he seems to have, like he just came in, kind of dominated that Wild series, and then had the game he did last night. I think he's the better goalie as of right now. Like I said, he's emotional, and to his point, that might be a good thing for right now if he can get in one of those mindsets. So series predictions. I'm kind of with you. I think if a team is going to upset Colorado, I think it's going to be St. Louis. In saying that, I think this is the year Colorado defeats its demons and wins this in 6.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Colorado in 7.
Colorado in 7. I like it. um, Moving on to the series, Noah thought he would be watching a lot harder. We have the Rangers in Carolina. Um, After watching the Rangers kind of struggle to an injury-filled Pittsburgh Penguins, do they have enough to beat Carolina?
No, no. I think Carolina will. Not even saying this just because I'm a salty Penguins fan and I don't like Rangers. Honestly, actually, I found out in this series, Rangers fans is the most annoying in the whole NHL. So if
I
any of
kind
you
of get
Rangers
behind
fan, if any of you Rangers fans are watching this and are stuck up to this point, I don't like you. Um,
it.
and I don't like your team, and I don't think they have a shot at beating this Carolina team.
I don't either. I don't know. I feel like the Rangers really showed in the first round that they're really dependent on their like top 4 players.
And they're dependent if Shesterkin doesn't want to get pulled.
So if they aren't firing, like they weren't firing in the first half of the Pittsburgh series, and it showed. They kind of came alive at the end there, but it also showed they started winning. But it's kind of hard to be dependent on 4 players when you get farther in the playoffs. You play better teams and stuff like that. So I don't think the
As we
Rangers. Yep.
as we say this, the Rangers are currently winning 1-0 at the start of the second period.
Are they? Was it one of their top guys?
Nope. Philip Heedle is how
Oh,
you say it.
all right. Well, prove me
Third
wrong,
line.
boy. um, Obviously, it's not a question that Freddie Anderson is better than Antti Ranta, but the way Antti Ranta's playing, if Freddie's healthy, is he playing tonight? Because this
No,
kind of banks. Okay. Um, let's say the Rangers win this game. Um, if Freddie is healthy enough to play game 2, do you put him in right away down 1-0 and hope that he's locked in? Or do you give him a little bit of extra time and not put him in that much pressure and keep going with Antti Ranta, who's been steady?
after Ranta came back from that like weak injury, he was great, like 100% a good enough goalie to win them the cup. I think until Ranta has a bad game or like gets yanked, I think you go with him even when Freddie's healthy.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I find putting goalies in right after injury into big spots like that is a little risky. So if Ranta plays a bad game, then yeah, I switch it up. But like you said, Ranta's been playing really well, and I think you kind of stick with that. Um, so what do you think the series is going to end up being?
Well, I think Carolina wins tonight, and I think Carolina wins in 5.
In 5? I think Shesterkin's just really good. Um, so I'll give him a game or two. I'll say Carolina in 6. um, Moving on, we have the Battle of Florida, Tampa Bay and the Panthers. Um, we saw a pretty dominant performance from Tampa last night, and that's without Braden Point. So my question is, without Braden Point and still losing game 1 at home pretty dominantly, should the Panthers be worried?
100%. You were up 1-0 in the first period, and you couldn't score a goal on possibly when his career ends, he probably will push to be the best goalie of all time in Vasilevsky. Um,
100%.
I think that Vasilevsky is just too good. Like you saw it in the Toronto series, even though for a couple games Toronto was able to get 5 on him in that one game, but that only happened once, and after that he was locked in. 100%. If you're losing without Braden Point, who is arguably Tampa's second best player after Kucherov, it's you definitely have to be scared. And I'm even scared for Bobrovsky. Like I don't know what he's gonna do. He played well. He was shaky in the first round against the Capitals, and he was shaky last night. Um, so yeah, 100% you're scared. You're shaking in your boots if you're the Florida Panthers.
Yeah. Um, I'm in the same boat as you. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning, obviously, they just know how the playoffs works. Like it was game 1, it was in an away building. They knew the fans would be crazy. They knew Florida would come out hot, so they just kind of hung around. They didn't do anything dramatic in the first period, and then they settled in and they kind of dominated the rest of the game. Um, as a Panthers fan, I would be very worried. This series could get out of hand very quick. My second question is,
Can I
are the
say something before we move
yeah,
on here?
100%.
So if Florida does come back, this don't make sure you're 18 plus. I put $5 on Carter Verhaeghe to win the Conn Smythe.
That's not a bad bet.
The
Not a
odds are
bad bet at
plus
all.
two plus 2,500. My potential payout would be 130.
That's crazy. The boys like Barkov, Huberdeau, they need to step up.
So yeah, if you're looking to bet, which I don't bet very often, but and make sure you're 18 plus on the score bet, Carter Verhaeghe is plus 2,500 odds. Never know if they get past Florida and he has another. If he gets past Tampa and he has another big series, you never know what'll happen.
You never know. Um, Moving on. I think that's a great bet, to be honest. I love it.
Corey
Um,
Connor's top 10 finish also at the PGA.
nice. Are the Lightning
Canadian boy.
showing that the regular season doesn't really matter? You just got to get in.
They're back-to-back step cup champions for a reason. They know how to play in the playoffs. And I think that third line, they're hungry. Nick Paul never played in the playoffs before this year. He's hungry. Brandon Hagel never played in the playoffs before this year. They got some hungry guys out there. I forget their GM's name, but he did a great job as usual at the trade deadline this year. Getting some fresh legs because playing 2 Stanley Cup Finals. They call the regular season a marathon, and they call the playoffs another marathon right after that. So bring in some fresh legs for the second part of the marathon. Whenever you just did 2 marathons the past 2 seasons in a row, I think that's a great move, and it'll be. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's gonna be hard for them not to repeat if they're playing as well as they have been. And this is
Yeah,
without Kucherov. This is without Kucherov firing. Kucherov was not good in the Toronto series.
exactly. I think they're figuring something out. Like I think they finished third in their conference the past 2 years now. Um, their top guys never play a full two. Like they're in like the high 60s, low 70s range. I think they just get in, stay as healthy as possible, and then once you get in, they know they're good enough. Um, and I think more teams might start to adopt that kind of strategy. Um, In saying that, what do you think this series is going to end up being?
Well, before last night, my predictions would have been completely different. But after watching last night, I am gonna go Tampa in 6.
I'm going to go even more bold. I'm going to say Tampa in 5. I don't believe in this Panthers team. I said it when they were playing Washington. Yeah, they haven't looked right. I don't think they play playoff style hockey. I think they'll figure it out as the years go by, but as of right now, they don't really play playoff hockey.
Before
Moving
the
on to
year,
our last
though,
series.
one
What's
sec.
that?
Before the series, like before last night, I had Florida in 7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's still possible. We'll see. Um, I saved this series for last because I think it'll be the best one.
Yep. I'm gonna be watching that one.
Entertainment wise, we got the Battle of Alberta. And I think the biggest question going into this series is which side will win? Will Jacob Markstrom's goalie performance win, or will the Oilers offense win? What do you think?
I'm gonna go with Jacob Markstrom's goaltending. I think
I'm
that
with you.
the Oilers barely beating Jonathan Quick, who is obviously a great veteran goalie. He has the experience. I think that they were barely able to get past him, and he was like he had to play his best hockey to be able to give his LA team a chance, and he pushed it to 7. I think you're getting a better Jonathan Quick and Jacob Markstrom. He was a finalist. He hasn't been named yet, but he's a finalist for the Vezina Trophy. He led the league in shutouts. He's a top 5 goalie in the league, probably, if we're talking about right now. And even right now, Draisaitl is playing on one leg. Obviously, Draisaitl playing on one leg is better than their bottom 6 still, but I think it's got to be Jacob Markstrom's goaltending.
I'm in the same boat as you. I was thinking the exact same way as I was writing this question up. The not to take away from the LA Kings because we both picked them, but we can confidently say the LA Kings are a team for the future. They got a lot of young guys.
Oh, they're going to be so good in a couple of years, man.
Yeah, they might be one of the best teams in the league in 4 years, but they're no Calgary Flames. So I think Markstrom's going to win that too. But speaking about the Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings, did the Kings going up 3-2 in that series wake up a playoff monster in Connor McDavid?
I don't think you can really say they woke him up because he was the first player ever to record a multi-point game in every game of the series. So I don't think going down 3-2 sort of woke him up. I think he was just sort of a monster before the series even started.
Yeah, I thought it was a good question because although, like you said, he was putting up multi points in every game this series, he looked different in game 6 and 7. There was just something about him. He
Yeah.
looked
Yeah,
mean,
no,
but he was seeing
he
nothing.
definitely came into game 7 and he was in the sort of mindset I am not losing. I don't care
Yeah,
what happens, what I have to do, I am not losing.
yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat. He just something happened in game 6 and 7, and he was not losing those games.
No, no,
Um,
he just went to another gear.
yeah. So talking about Jake Ottinger, actually, he was the best goalie in the first round, and it still wasn't good enough to beat the Edmonton Oilers. So my next question is, if Jake Ottinger's play wasn't enough to beat Calgary, will Mike Smith be able to play at the level or higher than Jake Ottinger? Because that's what it seems like it's going to take to beat the Flames.
I don't think so. Mike Smith's 41, Jake Ottinger's 23. There's 18 years age difference there. Mike Smith was probably getting drafted the year that Jake Ottinger was born. So I don't think that he'll be able to. Did he play great in round 1? Yes. Did he surprise me? Yes. Do I think he can continue that? No.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't know. The media seems really high on Mike Smith. I'm really confused as to
He's a
why.
41-year-old. The deeper that the Oilers go into the playoffs, and if he's playing every game and he's getting 40 shots every game, I don't think he can withstand playing as good as he did in round 1.
Yeah, he's going to crack eventually.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So series predictions.
I'm gonna go. It'll be interesting tonight. I'm definitely gonna watch probably the first 2 periods tonight, but I have to work early tomorrow, so I probably won't be able to stay up for the whole game. But if I'm going off right now, right before we see this series, I will go Calgary in 7.
I'm gonna go Calgary in 6.
You pick 6 for every series, man.
No, I said Tampa in 5.
Oh, look at you.
Tampa in 5. Yeah, I mean, Game 7 is kind of scary now for an Oilers fan because Connor McDavid, he seems like if he gets into another Game 7, he just won't lose again. So I'm gonna pick Flames in 6. But yeah, that's gonna be very fun to watch. I don't know if you want to do the trivia still really quick
Yeah.
or
Let's
not.
let's do it.
Okay,
It's just me,
so
so like we'll go through it quick.
yeah, we'll do the trivia quick. I got 5 questions. It's all about the playoffs thus far. So this is as of Wednesday. Which NHL
Okay.
team has played the most games in the playoffs?
It'd be Tampa. They're the only
It
they're
would
the
be
only team that went to 7, and that played last night.
as of right now, Tampa played 8 games.
Yeah, because St. Louis was in 6, Colorado was in 4, and then Florida was in 6.
Yes, sir. Good job. 1 for 1. Question 2. Who has the most points this far in the playoffs?
Oh, that's easy. I just said he's got a point per. He's got over multi-point games every game. So and he played 7 games. So it's got to be McDavid.
It's actually very close. Connor Verhaeghe's 2 points behind him. Believe it or
Con's
not.
my baby.
Yeah, you're not wrong. 2 for 2. Um, who has the most shutouts this far in the playoffs?
There's a couple people. There's a couple with 1. I don't know if somebody
There's
got more
one.
than 1.
There's one goalie with 2, and this actually shocked me. I didn't know this.
Quick had 1. Oettinger had 1. Markstrom had 1. Smith had 1. No, Smith had 2. Mike Smith had 2.
Smith had 2. I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah. I knew there was a bunch that had scattered 1, and it just hit me that he had 2. Wow, there's a lot of
Yeah,
goalless games in that
yeah,
LA series.
yeah. That's crazy. Question 4. In the first round of the playoffs, which team scored the most goals? They scored 29 total goals in the first round.
Bastard. This hurts me to
It's
say.
close.
It was Pittsburgh.
It was Pittsburgh. They scored the most goals. Um,
That
New
pisses
York
me off.
was New York was 1 behind them at 28. Edmonton was pretty close. Toronto was right there as well. But Pittsburgh scored 29 goals. Okay, let's see if you can go the perfect score here. Which playoff team out of all 16 is the only team to not score a power play goal yet?
Oh, power play goal. Oh, jeez. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. Tampa, yes. Toronto, yes. Pittsburgh, yes. Rangers, yes. Capitals, yes. I don't know what the Panthers have. I'll go back to them. What's the other East? Canes, yes.
Um,
Bruins, yes. Saw the Blues score. I saw Colorado score. Mini scored. Screw it. Florida. They're the only team that has. I didn't know.
Florida is like 0 for 25, something like that.
Okay, so I was between LA because I don't remember them seeing one in Florida.
Yeah, see, like I was kind of assuming that other people would be in here, and I kind of figured somebody would pick like Nashville or something.
No, I
But
watched the game. I watched Nashville score on the power play. I remember that.
isn't it crazy how one of the deadliest power plays is
That's
like 0 for
nuts.
25 or something like that? And they didn't
That's
score on the
nuts.
power play last night, so
That's nuts.
yeah, they need to figure that out.
Yeah, for sure.
5 for 5,
Okay,
sir.
5 for 5. If Max or B Fish were here, they would have got blown out of the water.
Yeah.
So that'll do it for today, guys. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to never miss a podcast. They come out every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. I know we don't say it a lot, but you can set a timer if you want. We'll be back next week. We keep saying that we're gonna post a mini game, and we will try to get on that. It's a long weekend, so maybe all of us will get together at some point. But it's supposed to rain a lot here where we are, so who knows? But yeah, we'll see you later. Peace.
Peace.